when somebody's playing the disability card, as an employer, how do you deal with this? How do you respond when you know full well that they've got discrimination legislation on their side, they've got the right to reasonable adjustments, and they've just raised that they've got a disability? How are you going to deal with it? And are they really playing the disability card? My name's Jenefer, I'm the founder of Silk Helix. We are a HR consultancy and specialise in neurodiversity. So I want to talk about this disability card that is apparently being played, and why I don't think the disability card is being played, why I think it can look like that, and how we tackle it most importantly. So the reason I think it looks like this is because what we find happens is we go through a process. So we're going through a process with somebody, say performance management. We've got concerns about someone's performance. We've raised those concerns. We've tried to discuss it with them informally. We've ended up in a formal process. Perhaps we're getting towards a disciplinary warning, possibly even dismissal. And suddenly this person says, actually, I've got a disability. And that should be being taken into account. And all of a sudden, we've got to stop the process and rethink everything. It changes everything. And I think that's why, as employers, it can feel so frustrating. And it feels like they're playing the card to save their job by suddenly announcing they've got a disability and therefore this is going to save my job, it's going to stop this process. I don't think they are playing a disability card in most situations. I certainly don't think they're lying about it. Again, in most situations, there's little gain to be had from lying about having a disability. Having a disability often means stigma, it means challenges in your life, and it's not a guarantee to save everything. It doesn't mean that having a disability means you can get away with everything and anything at work. You still got to perform and do the job. You just need reasonable adjustments to support you to do it, possibly. So there really is little gain in lying. Now, I'm not saying nobody does. I suspect that there are possibly some other underlying reasons why somebody might lie about having a disability. Perhaps there's something that they're not admitting. Narcissistic personality disorder sort of springs to mind as one of the examples as to where we see people lying about illness and disability. And there are other reasons and underlying causes of somebody doing that. But in the most part, these are the really rare cases. So if we get those and we find them, we can tackle them. My suggestion would be we believe people. We don't go in from a point of view of they may be lying about it. I think that is so rare that we come across that. It's not worth going into the situation from that point of view. Even if you've come across it, and if you're a HR professional watching this, you've probably come across this at some point in your career. But as I say, it's going to be the small number. So believe people. That's always a starting point. Just believe them and deal with it from that point of view. And then why do people suddenly say this at the last moment? The reason they say it is because your culture isn't right. Your culture in your company is stopping people coming forward and saying it. And it could be not just your culture, it could be a whole wide range of things. So you can have a culture where some people are coming forward and others aren't. And some of that will be because of their own background. Somebody with a disability, whether they've known they've had that disability for their entire lives or most of their lives, whether they've acquired that disability or suddenly realise, I know not everybody will identify with it as a disability, but for the Equality Act purposes, for the point of view of employers, I would be saying we should be looking at this as a disability because they may well fall under that definition under the Equality Act of a disability. So we've got this situation where people aren't coming forward, and the reason they're not coming forward often is because they've experienced stigma in the past, they've experienced discrimination in the past. They fear that if they come forward, they may not get offered the job if they come forward in recruitment. They may lose the job very quickly if they come forward in the early days of employment. Somebody's got to feel very safe to disclose what could be some quite significant weaknesses that they're experiencing. And I sort of say weaknesses for want of a better word, because this is also why in recruitment I kind of hate that question, strengths and weaknesses, because they're challenges really rather than weaknesses. But often that's how people will identify them or see them, or fear that their new boss will see them as weaknesses. And again, that's why they're not going to come forward. So if we've got a culture that celebrates the strengths that everybody brings to the team and recognises that we all have weaknesses, whether they're challenges or weaknesses, we all have them. We all have things that we are not as good at and things that we are better at. That is normal human experience, and then for some people it's a greater experience because of an underlying condition. So when we recognise that, when we value that, and we're able to talk openly about it, then people are able to come forward and say, actually, I experience dyslexia or ADHD or autism or all the other huge range of things it could be. That's just 3 sort of very narrow examples, effectively. When we know in the early stages, it's much easier to deal with, and we get much less of the kind of, they're paying the disability card, because usually we know what the challenges are, we can put reasonable adjustments in place, and they usually are reasonable. I've got other videos on reasonable adjustments, how we identify what reasonable adjustments are. Go and watch that for more details around reasonable adjustments. But what we're looking at is what is reasonable in the circumstances. And when it comes to many disabilities, the adjustments needed are relatively small, and they take a little bit of effort maybe, but they cost relatively small amounts. And we're just talking some effort in terms of how we manage people, how we support people, possibly some environmental things, and I mean, some say relatively small things that can really support somebody to be at their best. And particularly now where technology and things are able to support us as well. So for me, it's about how we create that culture that embraces these things. Awareness training, really important that we do awareness training so that people are aware, people are educated, people understand their colleagues' challenges and their strengths. Obviously, we're not doing awareness training about an individual. We're doing awareness training more general than that. But that's really important. Open conversations where we don't penalise people for raising their challenges, their weaknesses, their training needs, where we're embracing all of that as part of a positive experience to getting the best out of people. You're going to find yourself in far less performance management situations. If you've got that right from the start, it's not going to go all the way to being a problem for somebody to suddenly have to pull out at the last minute that they've got a disability, because you'll have put in the relatively easy things, simple things to put in place at the beginning. Things will go a lot smoother. You will have less management time dealing with problems. You'll get the best out of somebody, and things will go a whole lot smoother. You will avoid a whole lot of problems. And that's largely why I don't think people are putting a disability card. In most cases, I don't think people are lying about it. I don't think people are withholding on purpose. I think there are underlying reasons, and as employers, we can do a lot to try and overcome those barriers. I don't think it's unreasonable that people don't disclose in recruitment. There's a lot of fear at that stage. You're going to have to do a lot of work in promoting your openness to reasonable adjustments and things to get people to disclose in recruitment. But if we can encourage them to disclose soon after employment starts, we can put reasonable adjustments in place. We can support people to be their best. And the point is that reasonable adjustments are about people being able to be successful in their roles. And if we find that actually the nature of somebody's disability or the adjustments that they need mean that they just are not going to be able to fulfill this role in the way we need to, or there's no other roles within the organisation that would work for them, then we could look at dismissal. We're not expected just to keep somebody in employment who isn't able to do the role, and there's no adjustments that can be made that would enable them to do the role. So we have scope as employers, but we need to deal with this quickly. And that's why for us, getting specialist advice in is really important, and people that understand and recognise the conditions, so you're not getting wrong advice or guidance about the support that somebody might need. So we do workplace assessments, for example, specialising in dyslexia and ADHD. We're not diagnosing, but what we are doing is saying, okay, you've got dyslexia, you've got ADHD, or you've got some of the traits of these, and looking at those and looking at the work environment and what adjustments can be put in place to enable that person to be at their best. And also awareness training, as I've mentioned before, we do awareness training as well. And again, really important to making sure that somebody is able to be successful in the work environment. Another thing to bear in mind, that employers do have a duty not only to make reasonable adjustments when somebody discloses a disability, but also if there's reasonable signs that there might be a disability there, we have a duty to make reasonable adjustments. We have a duty to support people. Inconsistencies in performance could be an indicator of a disability like dyslexia or ADHD, for example. Sudden changes in performance could be a really strong indicator of disabilities, a whole range of disabilities from physical diagnosis and menopause, just to name a couple of examples where a sudden change in performance could be an indicator that there is a disability there and that support and adjustments are needed. And when we're talking about getting somebody to perform and be at the level that we need them to be, it's kind of a no-brainer as to why we wouldn't make reasonable adjustments. And say when that word reasonable is really important. We are only looking at what is reasonable, and for really small employers, we've got access to work to support us as well in making those adjustments. But as an employer, we do have to be aware, and that's where awareness training comes, and indeed seeking specialist advice, where we consider what might be going on. I think traditionally we've looked at it that if somebody can do this yesterday but now can't do it today, we've looked at that as a conduct issue. We've looked at that as evidence that somebody can do the job. It's not a disability, it's not something underlying. And now we're much more aware that actually that could well be a can't do rather than a won't do, a capability rather than a conduct issue. In that somebody, say with dyslexia, with ADHD, for example, may well experience inconsistencies where they can remember something one day but not the next day. They do something well one day but actually the next day it's much harder to do. And those sort of inconsistencies going up and down could well be evidence that there is something underlying. Now, there's also some caution to be had here, because we may see the traits in somebody else. We may see these inconsistencies and think, that looks like somebody might be experiencing dyslexia, for example. We want to be really careful that we're not going around diagnosing people. We definitely don't. Doesn't matter what traits you see, what you suspect, be really cautious with your language. Apart from anything, getting a diagnosis or even suspecting you have later in life has a whole lot of emotional stuff that comes with it. There's a lot to process, a lot to consider, a lot to relearn about yourself, a lot to unmask, a lot. There's just a lot to it. So we want to be really cautious. And of course, there is also still all this stigma around that makes it quite challenging sometimes to be told that maybe you do have one of these things. So again, I'm going to come back to awareness training. By doing awareness training, we help people to identify for themselves, to become familiar with, what does dyslexia look like? What does ADHD look like? What does autism look like? And I say those three because statistically at the moment, certainly we're seeing that they tend to be the most common ones that people are realising. Now, clearly, as we get more awareness, more comes out and we see more prevalence of conditions. So that may well change in the future. But as people get that information and then start going, that looks like me. I thought that was everybody. It's not. Okay, that might be me. And those awareness sessions can get people to thinking about that and seeing it for themselves. But actually, as employers, the point is looking at somebody's challenges and how we can overcome them. Do they need to have a disability? Let's say somebody, for example, keeps producing emails that's got typos in it, spelling errors, grammatical errors. Why not just purchase Grammarly, for example? Why not just put something in place that supports that and stops that? Do they need to have dyslexia or dyslexia diagnosis in order to get that? Or is it not just better that our emails go out to clients looking professional, or even internally looking professional without mistakes, and therefore relatively small cost, we can provide software that overcomes the problem? And again, for me, this is about getting the best out of our team. It's about enabling somebody to do their job to the best they can. And as an employer, why would we not do that? Why would we not put those things in place to get the best out of people? If you're watching this video and thinking, we may well have situations like this, we've got performance issues, actually there is inconsistencies there, or it's sudden change, or maybe there's a disability, or maybe somebody has raised that they have a disability, get in touch. There's details in the description below of how you can work with us. We can do direct advice, let's say workplace assessments, awareness training, all of these things that can help you to manage these situations. But get in touch as a free consultation. We can work out with you what the best way is to support you and indeed your team to be able to be their best selves at work so that you get the best out of it as a business owner or people manager.